Welcome to the 2023-24 Test Security Training Series. OSSE's Office of Assessments has developed a series of training modules to prepare for the Spring 2024 statewide assessments administration. We look forward to speaking with you today. If you are participating in the meeting remotely, please make sure to sign in via the QR code or the link in the chat. We will be recording today's meeting. Today's training is specific to test security and test integrity. We will share some general information about administering the individual assessments. More detailed information will be shared during vendor assessment training. The OSSE Office of Assessments mission statement guides our work together. In partnership with key stakeholders, we will create a comprehensive educational assessment program that accurately measures student performance, provides actionable data, and provides tools, guidance, and training to empower LEAs to meet the needs of all learners and make informed decisions. LEA assessment managers, LEA test coordinators, and non-public school test coordinators are required to complete the OSSE test security training. These roles are responsible for ensuring that all school-based personnel involved in assessment administration receive training on test integrity and security and assessment administration procedures. In addition to this assessment training module overview, there are 5 required training modules. The modules are required for all LEA test integrity coordinators, LEA assessment managers, LEA test coordinators, and non-public school test coordinators, including those responsible for access and alternate access, MSAA, DLM, and DC CAPE. All LEA and non-public coordinators are required to participate in one of the live test security training sessions, either in person or virtually, and may use these modules as an ongoing resource for reference. The dates and times of the live test security training sessions are posted on OSSE's website on the Test Coordinators Resource page. While these required security training modules are intended for assessment points of contact at the LEA level, the resources and information provided in these modules can be adapted by LEAs to train authorized personnel at the school level, inserting LEA or school-specific policies as applicable. All authorized personnel are required to be trained by the LEA or school test coordinator prior to test administration. The modules follow the order of activities in the assessment coordination timeline shown on the next slide. Upon completion of all training modules, coordinators will need to complete a quiz and certification form, verifying they have viewed and understood all content. A score of 80% out of 100 total points or higher on the quiz will serve as the official attendance and completion of the 2024 test security training. The required test security training modules include Module 0, Overview of the 2023-24 statewide assessments, Module 1, Test Integrity, Roles and Responsibilities, Module 2, Test Security Documentation and School Test Security Plan, Module 3, Assessment, Preparation, and Administration, Module 4, Test Administration, Prohibitive Actions, and Incident Reporting, and Module 5, Administration Closeout and Reporting. Welcome to Module 0 of the 2023-24 Test Security Training Series. This module will serve as the overview for the 2024 statewide assessments. First, we will discuss the 2023-24 assessments and timelines. Here you can see each of the OSSE statewide assessments. These assessments include NAEP, which is the National Assessment of Educational Progress. It is administered for reading and math in grades 4 and 8. Only select schools administer this assessment. If your school was selected for NAEP, you have already been notified. WIDA Access for ELS and WIDA Alternate Access is the English Language Proficiency Assessment and is available for grades K through 12. DC CAPE begins in the 2023-24 school year. DC has implemented a new name for its general statewide assessment, which includes assessments in English language arts, lit and literacy, ELA, mathematics, and science. DC CAPE is the general assessment for English language arts and mathematics and is administered in grades 3 through high school. Science will be administered in grades 5, 8, and high school biology. MSAA is the multi-states alternate assessment. MSAA is the alternate ELA and mathematics assessment for grades 3 through 8 and grade 11. DLM stands for Dynamic Learning Maps. DLM is the alternative science assessment administered in grades 5, 8, and high school biology. All of these assessments will be administered in 2024. This slide shows the assessment windows for each of the OSSE statewide assessments discussed on the previous slide. The NAEP field test assessment window will run from January 29th to March 8th, 2024. As a reminder, selected schools for NAEP have already been notified. WIDA Access for ELS and WIDA Alternate Access assessment windows run from February 12th to March 22nd, 2024. The spring 2024 alternate access field tests will also be administered during this window. MSAA and DLM assessment windows run from March 11th to April 26, 2024. DC CAPE windows for computer-based testing run from April 1st to May 24th, 2024. The paper accommodation window for DC CAPE is from April 1st to May 17th, 2024. LEAs are responsible for creating a test schedule that allows all testing to be completed within the established statewide testing window for each assessment. Once again, this year, the DC CAPE window starts 2 weeks before spring break. LEAs should keep this in mind as they are planning their testing schedules to ensure they can get all of their testing in before the close of the paper accommodation windows and the close of the computer-based testing window. This slide also shows the 2024 assessment windows discussed on the previous slide. If you would like to print this slide, it should be interpretable in grayscale. That said, you may also want to add any LEA or school-specific holidays that are not included in this calendar view. The assessment coordination timeline shows the activities needed to prepare for and complete statewide assessment administration in the District of Columbia. The color and the shape of each icon indicates who is performing each action. The orange square indicates a required LEA submission to OSSE. The navy blue circles indicates an OSSE action. The medium blue circle indicates an LEA action. The light blue circle represents a school action with LEA oversight. The red squares indicate a shipment either to or from the school. Readiness guides have been developed for each assessment, highlighting key activities for test coordinators to complete each month to prepare for assessments. Administration. The readiness guides will help LEA test coordinators better understand when the listed activities are happening for each assessment and provide links to relevant resources. Readiness guides can be accessed at the link on the chat or on the slide. OSSE, in partnership with assessment vendors, offers assessment-specific training to prepare test coordinators to administer each statewide assessment. To view the complete testing schedule and more, go to the test coordinator website linked on the slide. If you have questions about OSSE assessment's policies or specific assessment programs, please feel free to use the information on this slide to reach out to the appropriate member of the OSSE Office of Assessments. If you need to reference any resources, documents, or policies specific to DC assessments, the first 3 links are helpful. The assessment-specific details including training information and test-specific items, see all of the second links on this slide. And with that, we move on to Module 1 for the Test Security Training Series. Module 1 is Test Integrity Policy, Roles, and Responsibilities. For those of you who have attended test security training in previous years, you may recognize this statement from OSSE. It is something that we share in our trainings, as it is important to remember why we ask for the standardization we do. OSSE's goal is to develop and provide statewide assessments that yield fair and accurate results. To do this, schools and local education agencies, or LEAs, are to administer assessments in consistent and standardized conditions. The best way for us to support schools and LEAs administering quality assessments is to ensure educators understand and recognize acceptable and unacceptable assessment practices. OSSE's goal is to provide clear and robust guidance to LEAs such that students experience a consistent and equitable testing conditions as possible. Let's start with the overview of our test integrity and security policy documents. In the District of Columbia, we are bound by a number of laws, regulations, and compliance documents detailing our test security requirements. These include the Testing Integrity Act of 2013 and the Testing Integrity Act amendments in 2015. Additional compliance documents, including the 2023-24 District of Columbia Test Security Guidelines and the Assessment Test Coordinator and Administrator Manuals for each summative assessment. We will go over each of these pieces individually. The foundational document that is the root of our requirements is the Testing Integrity Act of 2013 and its two amendments from 2015. The Testing Integrity Act of 2013 provides definitions of key terms and roles, sets requirements for OSSE, LEAs, and schools, and describes prohibitive actions set for all authorized personnel. The Testing Integrity Act of 2015 amendments provide updated requirements for the school test plan submissions and approvals processes, sets requirements for OSSE training and guidance document release, and updates the list of approved electronics during testing in special circumstances. In addition to the guidance presented in the Testing Integrity Act of 2013 as amended, OSSE releases annual policy guidance, documents, and guidance that further clarifies what's presented in the Act. The first annual piece of guidance is the 2023-24 Statewide Assessments Participation and Performance Policy. It details the required assessments for the school year, as well as how participation rates and performance calculations are determined. All public, elementary, and secondary students, including students with disabilities, English learners or EL students, and EL students with disabilities enrolled in tested grades and courses are required to participate in statewide testing in accordance with this policy. The next is the Test Security Guidelines, which are released annually by OSSE to LEAs and the public, stating minimum requirements for maintaining test security procedures. These guidelines expound on the requirements set forth in the Testing Integrity Act of 2013 as amended. For example, it includes details on OSSE, LEA, and school roles and responsibilities, test environment requirements, and exceptional circumstances. Additionally, investigative protocols set requirements for the post-test administration inquiry, findings, and reconciliation process. As a reminder, OSSE has released the test security guidelines for the 2023-24 school year, and those are available on the test security section of OSSE's assessment website. In addition to the test security guidelines that OSSE releases, our test administration vendors also release annual test coordination administration manuals for LEA and school staff. Assessment manuals are available for all spring 2024 assessments, which include DC CAPE, MSAA, DLM, Access for ELS, and WIDA alternate access. Assessment manuals provide critical instructions for test coordinators, technology coordinators, and test administrators, as well as procedures and protocols to complete before, during, and after administration. All of the documents mentioned in this module, as well as other test security documents, can be found on our Test Security and Incident Report webpage. The link is listed on the slide. You can search OSSI Test Security in most search engines and will also bring up this webpage. Please use this webpage as a first step to inquire about any new test security information or any general test security information or documentation. We regularly update this page with any new documentation or policy throughout the year. The 2023 statewide assessments participation and policy can also be accessed through the test security website. The document details this required assessment, how participation and performance are calculated, and final business rules for the District of Columbia's administration of statewide assessments during the 2023-2024 school year. In addition to our test security webpage, the Test Coordinator Resource webpage contains several helpful resources, including the assessment windows, overview of the assessment roles and responsibilities, training schedules, contact information for administration support, and more. Now that we have discussed our policy, we can go over the different authorized personnel during test administration, as well as your role as the LEA Test Integrity Coordinator, the LEA Assessment Manager, LEA Test Coordinator, and/or non-public school test coordinator. We're going to breeze right through all of this, keeping in mind all this information is available on the OSSI Office of Assessment webpage under the Test Coordinator Resource link. You don't have to remember this all now. To get there, go to ossi.dc.gov/assessments, then scroll down to the Test Coordinator Resource link. Now we will talk about the aforementioned roles and responsibilities. There are several formal roles established in the Testing Integrity Act of 2013 as amended. Each of these roles have unique responsibilities to ensure test administration is secure and consistent. Specifically, formal assessment roles include State Education Agency, or OSSI, Test Integrity Coordinator, the LEA Assessment Manager and/or LEA Test Coordinator, the Test Monitor, or the School Test Coordinator, the Test Administrator, the Test Proctor, the Special Populations Coordinator, and the Technology Coordinator. We will speak about each of these roles individually in a moment, but we can first talk about the general term of authorized personnel. Authorized personnel are defined as any individual who has access to statewide assessment materials or are directly involved in the administration of a statewide assessment. That means any person who will be involved in testing, and all of the individuals we will discuss in the next few slides are considered authorized personnel. These individuals have general requirements as established in the Testing Integrity Act of 2013 as amended. These requirements include complete test integrity training by OSSI or LEA testing coordinator, receive the test integrity and security notification statement, report breaches of test security and/or integrity, cooperate in testing integrity and security inquiries and investigations, refrain from prohibitive actions, read all applicable directions and guidance. The next role we will discuss is the role you will likely play, which is the Test Integrity Coordinator. In some documentation, you may see the role called the LEA Assessment Manager or LEA Test Coordinator instead of the Test Integrity Coordinator. Just know that they are the same role. One is just a legal term, Test Integrity Coordinator, while the others are what we use for administration purposes. The Test Integrity Coordinator is defined as the individual designated by the LEA to be responsible for testing integrity and security for the LEA and all school campuses under its purview during the statewide assessment. The LEA can choose up to 3 different individuals to serve as Test Integrity Coordinator role for their assessments. For example, a larger LEA could have one person as the DC CAPE Test Integrity Coordinator, a different person as the MSAA DLM Test Integrity Coordinator, and a third person as the Access and Alternate Access Test Integrity Coordinator. This is not a requirement, so all of these roles can certainly be the same person, but the opportunity is there for LEAs who choose to delegate different test integrity coordinators by assessment program. The LEA Assessment Manager may serve as a single test integrity coordinator across all assessment programs. For non-public schools, this test integrity coordinator will likely be the non-public school coordinator. In addition to the requirement for all authorized personnel, in addition to all the requirements for all authorized personnel, the test integrity coordinator is also required to designate, support, and train test members, complete test security and integrity training, submit school test plans for each school campus under the LEA's purview, monitor test administration, report any breach of testing security or deviation from test plan, investigate, document, and report to OSSE any breach or deviation, and finally sign, collect after 10 days and submit after 15 testing integrity affidavits. Similarly, the LEA test coordinator, the school test coordinator, or the school test monitor, which is a legal term used in the Testing Integrity Act, is responsible for test integrity and security for a school or campus site. These individuals may be assigned to this role by the LEA test coordinator. Also, like LEA test coordinators, any school may have up to 3 different personnel designated in this role by assessment, one for DC CAPE, one for MSAA and DLM, and one for access and alternate access. Specific requirements for the school test coordinator include create and submit school test plans to the LEA Test Integrity Coordinator, conduct test administration training for all authorized personnel, create and disseminate school test plans, oversee security of all secured materials, support authorized personnel administering the assessment, assign and submit affidavits to LEA Test Integrity Coordinators post-testing. The next 2 authorized personnel roles that we will discuss are the Special Populations Coordinator and the Technology Coordinator. The Special Populations Coordinator assists the test monitor or school test coordinator in identifying and documenting all testing accommodations needed for students. They also train test administrators to administer accommodations and monitor training for the correct and secure implementation of accommodations. The Technology Coordinator assists the test monitor or school test coordinator in preparing the administrator and student devices for secure testing according to vendor directions and troubleshoots any technology problems that may arise during administration. The next role is the test administrator. An individual identified as a test administrator is responsible for administering the assessment to students. Test administrator requirements include conducting the testing sessions as outlined in the appropriate test administrator manuals, establishing the testing climate within the test location, coordinating the distribution and return of testing materials to and from students, ensuring the students who require accommodation receive the appropriate accommodations in the test administrator testing group, and accounting for and maintaining the security of the test materials under their purview. Continuing in 2024, to provide logisticals and scheduling flexibility for all schools, the teacher of record may serve as the test administrator for their students without the need of an additional proctor present. Test proctors are defined as an individual identified by the test monitor to be responsible for assisting the test administrator with test administration and classroom management. The test proctor's primary responsibility is to assist the test administrator with test administration and classroom or session management as needed. Unlike other formal roles, the test proctor does not have a specific set of duties, and their duties may vary based on their needs of the administrators and classrooms. Although there is not a formal list of duties, the test proctor is still required to fulfill all requirements for authorized personnel, including being trained, reporting breaches of security or integrity, and participating in any investigations. This individual does not have to be employed by the school or LEA and can be a volunteer. OSSI has stated that parents or family members may serve as the role of proctor in a school but cannot proctor their own students. Next, we will go over preparation and planning. More than likely, you already have been selected to take on the role of LEA test coordinator for at least one of the assessments at your LEA. Here is the link we use to access the most up-to-date information to sign access to your testing platforms, the school test plan application, and for other record-keeping purposes. So it's important to provide OSSI with the most up-to-date information. Please ensure that this information is accurate and up-to-date throughout assessment administration windows. Click on the link located on the screen or type it into your browser in order to make those changes. If there are any changes to the information you previously provided, please update using the link and notify the OSSI Office of Administrations at ossi.assessments@dc.gov. On this page is the link to the completed training schedule. ossi.dc.gov/page/test-coordinator-resources. This is also shared in the NGA bulletin. The completion of the OSSI test security training is required for all LEA coordinators. All LEA assessment managers, LEA test coordinators, and non-public school test coordinators must complete OSSI's test security training every year. OSSI follows a train-the-trainer model for test security, meaning OSSI provides training for LEA level staff, and then the trained LEA level staff must train the school test coordinators. Depending on the needs or decisions from the LEA, the school test coordinator then trains all authorized personnel at the school, or the LEA test coordinator can choose to train the school test coordinator and all of the school level authorized personnel. For test security training, here are the steps that need to occur to ensure that everyone who must be trained is trained. All of these steps need to be executed by either the LEA or school test coordinator, depending on whether your LEA chooses to train the school test coordinator and all authorized personnel at the school level or decides to have the school test coordinator train all authorized personnel at the school level. Please ensure that all authorized personnel are trained and share this test security and integrity notification statement with them prior to test administration. And as a test security reminder, all LEA assessment managers, LEA test coordinators, and non-public school test coordinators must complete OSSI test security training and pass the associated quiz with a score of 80% or higher. School test security plans cannot be submitted if the LEA test coordinator or non-public school test coordinator listed in the plan has not completed the test security training. Additional information about school test security plan submission appears in Module 2 in this series. And now we're at Module 2. Module 2 is school test security plans. First, we will talk about how to submit school test security plans to OSSI. OSSI requires every school, including non-public schools, that will administer a statewide assessment to complete and submit a school test security plan prior to the start of the school's testing window. The school test security plan serves as an official communication with OSSI of a school's plan for administering statewide assessments and is submitted via the new OSSI assessment portal application in QuickBase. School test security plans must be submitted to OSSI for final approval at least 15 days prior to the first scheduled day of testing. Non-public schools are required to create school test security plans for their respective assessments and submit them directly to OSSI for review and approval at least 15 business days before the school's first planned day of testing. All other schools submit plans to their LEA, which then submit to OSSI. For this reason, school test coordinators should confirm submission timelines with their LEA to ensure their final plans are submitted to OSSE with the appropriate lead time. A school must submit a school test security plan for each assessment administered at their school. A school may decide to submit a separate plan for each assessment or combine plans. The following plans may be combined: Access and WIDA Alternate Access, MSAA, and DLM. In 2023-24, DC-CAPE plans will include DC ELA, DC Math, and, if applicable, DC Science. Schools must submit to OSSE the expected start and end dates for administration of assessment. Start and end dates are submitted using the School Test Security Plan section in the OSSE Assessment Portal. As part of the STSP development process, start and end dates for each assessment must be submitted to OSSE by the dates shown. Access for L's start and end dates are due no later than January 16, 2024. MSAA and DLM start and end dates are due no later than February 12, 2024. DC-CAPE start and end dates are due no later than March 4th, 2024. So how do you submit the start and end dates to OSSE in the new OSSE Assessment Portal? Great question. Follow the step-by-step directions on this slide to submit your start and end dates. Note that steps 3 through 5 must be completed for each school and each assessment by the established deadlines shared in the previous slide. We will now discuss what each school test security plan must include. Each plan must have names and contact information for test coordinators and key administration staff, a secure materials management plan, a plan for all authorized personnel to be trained on and/or receive before the first day of training, OSSE's test security and test integrity requirements, how to report incidents to OSSE, prohibitive actions during test administrations, and the OSSE test integrity and test security notification statement. School test security plans must also include the following: a plan for school staff and authorized personnel to report irregularities in test administration and security, a plan for key school staff to conduct inquiries on reported test irregularities during administration, a plan for handling logistical, technical, and communication issues that may arise during test administration, a list of authorized personnel, a detailed test schedule, and they must also include an affirmation that the school has met all actions as required by the state, such as there are established processes and procedures to monitor test security administration procedures. There are established processes and procedures to ensure students with disabilities and English learners receive appropriate accommodations on the assessment. There are established processes and procedures to implement makeup testing and remediate student absences and tardies as needed. An affirmation that the school has verified all student accommodations are assigned in the assessment management platform for all applicable assessments. The next step we will cover is school test schedule considerations. As previously stated, each school is required to prepare a test schedule for each statewide assessment, administered and submit the schedule to OSSE as a part of their school test security plans. Schools must consult vendor materials for assessment-specific guidance on timing and scheduling. Each assessment has a unique structure and allotted time for each section and unit. Students' accommodations, administrative considerations should be considered when creating testing groups and selecting testing location. A template is embedded in the school test security plan of the OSSE Assessment Portal application. However, if you want to use your own template, you can do so, provided that it has all the information included in the OSSE template. And as a test security reminder, the most updated version of the school test schedule must always be uploaded in the school test plan QuickPlace application. OSSE will use these schedules to plan for staff support and assessment monitoring visits. OSSE reviews and approves all school test plans and provides technical assistance to schools whose plans need improvement prior to and during testing. Take a moment to read the difference between a strong and weak test plan. OSSE wants to make sure that each school has the support they need to meet all expectations named in this training. School test plan completion support includes school test plan instructions, school test plan exemplars, authorized personnel and test schedule templates, OSSE technical assistance bookings, which is linked on the slide. All school test plan documents all school test plan support documents are posted on the OSSE Test Security and Incident Forms webpage. The OSSE Assessment Portal QuickBase application will launch in late December, early January. Test security reminder. OSSE school test security plan test security reminder. OSSE school test security plans must be submitted 15 business days before the first scheduled day of testing. OSSE's review period is typically 5 to 10 days. If a plan is submitted late or requested revisions are not completed in a timely manner, testing may be delayed. Testing cannot begin until the school test security plan is approved by OSSE. And now we're beginning Module 3, Assessment Preparation and Administration. You should familiarize yourself with assessment resources, including the OSSE State Assessments webpage, test security forms and guidelines, test coordinator resources, and testing accommodations information. The first link here will take you to OSSE's main assessment webpage. From there, you will find detailed information about each statewide assessment and other important resources from the Office of Assessments. The Test Security Forms and Guidelines link will take you to the landing page for test security resources, including test security guidelines, test security notification statements and affidavits, test security incident reporting forms, and forms to request medical exemptions or unique or emergency accommodations for assessments. The required test security training modules are also located on this page. The Test Coordinator Resources link is the main landing page for administration resources for LEA test coordinators and non-public school test coordinators. This page contains the 2023-24 testing windows and the test administration training schedule and customer support information for each assessment program. The final link contains guidance documents for selecting appropriate accommodations and accessibility features for students and links to manuals for each assessment program for assessment-specific guidance. As a reminder, these resources are available to help you prepare to administer the assessments. For each assessment, please make sure to include a registration process that is completed by the LEAs in partnership with OSSE. To determine which students should be registered for a given assessment, consult the 2023-24 Statewide Assessment Participation and Policy. To determine which students should be registered for a given assessment, consult the 2023-24 Statewide Assessments Participation and Performance Policy, which is linked on this slide. Assignment of accommodations and accessibility features for individual students occurs as part of the registration process. Assessments, accommodations, and accessibility features are identified for each student through the assessment's online portal. Accommodations and accessibility features are identified for each student through each assessment's online platform. There are differences between accommodations and accessibility features as illustrated in the visual aid on this slide. There are some accessibility features that are available to all students already built in the test platform. There are also accessibility features in the test platform that must be selected in advance for individual students. Accessibility features may be assigned to any student based on policies established by the LEA or school. Accommodations must be identified and selected in advance. Accommodations can only be assigned if they are included in a student's IEP, 504, or L plan. Additional guidance on assigning accommodations and accessibility features for each assessment can be found at the link on the slide. As a test security reminder, students are entitled to the accommodations in their IEP, 504, or L plan. Failing to provide students with the accommodation listed in these plans is a violation of their rights and of test security. Test coordinators need to work with special populations coordinators at your schools to create policies and assign accommodations and accessibility features to students effectively. LEA and school policies should be created to ensure accessibility features are assigned equitably. Accommodations and accessibility features should be reflective of a student's typical testing environment. Students should practice using accommodations and accessibility features prior to testing. Schools and LEAs are encouraged to consult the 2023-24 OSCE Testing Accommodations Guide linked on the slide for additional guidance on assigning accessibility features and accommodations for all assessments. Also, please note that registration for certain accommodations will trigger shipment of the appropriate secure materials. So it's important to ensure that student accommodations are entered appropriately before established deadlines so that the correct materials are received in time for training. And as a test security reminder, please ensure that accommodations and accessibility features are accurate and uploaded prior to the submission of the school test security plan. OSCE will review the registration files to ensure completion before test security plans are approved. The next step we will discuss is what to do when you receive testing materials. Assessments often require secure and accommodation materials to be shipped from the vendor to the schools. Materials may include test manuals, test booklets and answer sheets, accommodated test materials, and return shipping materials. All hard copy materials shipped by the testing vendor must be accepted in person. When receiving a shipment, check to ensure all ordered materials have been provided. Keep secure testing materials locked away in a secure location prior to testing. Non-secure materials, such as manuals, may have electronic versions available. Refer to assessment-specific guidance on how to obtain your test manuals. Materials may not be transported outside of where they are shipped. The next step we will cover in this module is how to set up student testing devices. Prior to testing, student testing devices must be prepared for test administration. Technology coordinators should review the technical specification for each assessment and ensure that devices are ready. Some things to consider when LEA or school test coordinator and technology coordinator plans for device preparation. Review device requirements. Update device software if needed. Download applications or create shortcuts to website links. Ensure appropriate bandwidth for administration. You do all of these things to ensure that there is no failure to complete these steps appropriately could result in testing delays and student device issues. The next step we will cover is train authorized personnel. LEA or school test coordinators must train all authorized personnel on test security and administration policies and practices prior to the start of test administration. As a reminder, OSCE follows a Train the Trainer module for test security training, meaning OSCE provides training for the LEA test coordinators, and then the LEA test coordinator must train the school test coordinators. Depending on the needs or decisions from the LEA, the school test coordinator then trains all authorized personnel at the school, or the LEA coordinator can choose to train the school test coordinator and all the authorized personnel. To note, if the school test coordinator will be training school staff, the LEA test coordinator must train the school test coordinator before the school-wide training takes place. LEA or school test coordinators may use and adapt these OSCE training materials for school-specific test security trainings if helpful. Please note that school-specific policies must be addressed for all school-authorized personnel. OSCE does not have specific requirements for the method LEA or school test coordinators use to train authorized personnel at their school. For example, video modules, live webinar, or in-person training, or another method that works for your school. Some LEAs use their OSSI training materials as the basis of their training. OSSI will post both the PowerPoint and the PDF version of this training with the transcript on our Test Security Information website and ultimately in our Learning Management System, or LMS. While there is not a requirement for the way authorized personnel must be trained, there are several items that must be covered during the training. These requirements include distribution of testing integrity and security notifications to all authorized personnel, review of the school test security plan, review of the test security guidelines, review of the test administration procedures, review of vendor-supported testing materials, as well as the process to follow for technology issues during testing and the process to follow to report testing incidents. Some additional information about authorized personnel test security training. Who is required to receive training? Any LEA or school staff who may meet testing material or student testing. These individuals may include test monitors, test administrators, test proctors, other authorized personnel such as school nurses, custodial staff, office managers, or anyone who may come in contact with secure test materials at any point during the assessment administration. Once training is complete, how should proof of training be documented or where? The following must be placed in the school test security file: training materials, attendance certification, test security and integrity notification statement. And as a test security reminder, assessment-specific training provided by vendors may also be required for test coordinators and/or test administrators. See the OSSI guidance on assessment-specific training on the website on the slide. And the next step is how to send assessment notification letters to families. Every school is required to send home notification letters to families, letting them know that their students will participate in statewide testing. A sample letter is available on OSSI's website, and it may be used or modified to fit the needs of each school. The following information must be included in the letter. School LEA must provide families with a letter regarding the dates and purpose of the statewide assessments. Copies of letters sent home must be kept in the school test security file. A template with English and other translated versions of the letter will be available on the OSSI website for school use. The next step we will discuss is how to establish a school test security file. Each school is required to establish and maintain a hard copy test security file for each school under their control for a minimum of 4 years. An electronic file may be kept in addition to the required hard copy version, which include at a minimum school test security plan, test security training materials, during testing notes, including minor deviations from school plans, plans to improve school policies and procedures forms, if applicable, test security fact-finding inquiry forms, if applicable, and test integrity and test security affidavits. Please note that the files listed on this slide may be maintained electronically during test administration, but must be printed and filed for a minimum of 4 years at the end of testing. To repeat, the files listed on this slide can be maintained electronically during testing, but must be printed and filed for a minimum of 4 years at the end of testing. The items on this slide must be printed and maintained during testing and filed for a minimum of 4 years at the end of testing. And these files include test security training attendance for authorized personnel, family notification letters, test materials chain of custody forms, and incident reports. Test security reminder: please ensure that the test security file is updated as often as needed and possible during and after the test administration window. During monitoring visits, OSSI will request to see the components of the test security file. OSSI may request to see any document from the test security file at any point in time in a 4-year period. The next step we will discuss is what are the expectations for creating a secure test environment. It's essential that students only have access to allowable testing materials outlined in the assessment manuals. Access to additional resources or tools is prohibited. Authorized personnel are responsible for ensuring that the testing environment is free of content that may provide students with an unfair advantage. Any information regarding the content being assessed or test-taking strategies, including word walls and multiplication tables, are prohibited in the testing environment. The testing environment includes, but is not limited to, the testing room, hallways, stairwells, and bathrooms where testing students travel during the testing session. Such displays should be removed or covered prior to the first day of statewide assessment administration and should remain removed or covered for the duration of active statewide assessment. Maintaining test security is an important factor when setting up a testing environment. Here are some seating recommendations to ensure the testing environment is secure. Making sure adequate space exists between student seating during testing is key. Special considerations may be permitted when assessing students with disabilities, one-to-one, such as with the MSAA or DLM assessments, and when assessing English learners. Additional details regarding administrative conditions and special considerations for students can be found in the test administrator manuals for each statewide assessment. School test coordinators and test administrators should adhere to their LEA and schools' established protocols, which also ensure the security of assessment content and consistent testing environment for all students. A typical learning environment may look like the one on this slide. To prepare for testing, non-permissible wall and bulletin displays will need to be removed or covered. Non-permissible bulletin and wall displays include any information regarding the content being assessed or test-taking strategies, including word walls and multiplication tables, and are prohibited in testing environments. The testing environments include, but is not limited to, the testing room, hallways, stairwells, and bathrooms where testing students travel during the testing session. Such displays should be removed or covered prior to the first day of the statewide assessment administration and should remain removed or covered for the duration of the active statewide assessment. In the instant that a student is taking Access for ELS or alternative access assessment, content is defined as English word translations from other languages or visual aids, conjugations of verbs from other languages, grammar and syntax rules, or any other English language arts writing strategies, vocabulary aids, and other content or strategies that may assist a student in completing the reading, writing, listening, or speaking domains. Take a moment to consider what may need to be covered or removed from this image. Follow the general rule that if the material in question may help a student answer or find an answer, post or copy materials, it is not allowed in the testing environment. You may have noticed that there were multiple wall displays that could have been considered a test security violation in the previous slide. These include the math formula that was in purple, the steps to success in green, the student work bulletin board, the world history timeline, the animal life cycle poster. All of these are examples of non-permissible wall displays because they may include content related to what may be assessed or test-taking strategies. You also may have noticed that there are desks on the previous slide that were too close together. On this slide, the desks are adequately separated to ensure test security. Please note that the timing box that displays information about the unit testing time, start and stop time, should be present and visible to all students in the testing environment. Make sure to refer to the test administrator manuals for additional information. Rather than remove these wall displays as we saw on the previous slide, it's also impermissible to cover them as seen on this slide. Additionally, if the desks are not able to be adequately separated as seen on the previous slide, desk dividers can be used to ensure that students are unable to see the testing content of their peers. Both this slide and the previous slide are examples of secure testing environments where all non-permissible wall displays are not in view and students are adequately separated from each other during testing. Additional details on how to set up testing environments can be found in the test administrator trainings and/or manuals. The next step we will discuss is how to maintain test integrity during administration. A major way to maintain test integrity is through proper preparation and distribution of testing materials, which is the responsibility of the school test coordinator. Some testing materials are intended for all students, while others are only provided to students with specific accommodations. If a student is provided with an accommodated material that they are not eligible to receive, or they do not receive an accommodated material they require based on their IEP, Section 504, or EL plan, their tests may be invalidated and require re-administration. Please take every precaution to avoid accommodation errors and the challenges that they may cause for students. Secure materials such as testing tickets, test booklets, answer documents, etc. must be kept secure prior to distribution. When test administrators receive secure materials from test coordinators, a chain of custody form must be signed by both parties. The form must be signed again when the documents are returned and are accounted for. When materials are destroyed, the test coordinator and a witness must sign the chain of custody form. Completed forms should be kept in the school test security file. Chain of custody forms can be found at the link on this slide. Prior to testing, school test administrators and LEA test administrators should be given test administrator manuals that they will keep throughout testing. This way, they may review them to further prepare for test administration. After all, they must follow all directions and scripts provided in the assessment manuals and reference it throughout the test administration. Cell phones may not be used in the testing environment by students or test administrators. During the administration of paper-based tests, no cell phones may be in the testing environment at any point during testing. During the administration of school-based testing, school test monitors and school technology coordinators may use cell phones for technical support. If a student or student's testing device or devices experiences technical problems that prevent the student or students from normal continuation of testing, the test administrator must alert the school test coordinator and technology coordinator. A student may require an electronic device, for example, for medical purposes, as a unique or non-standard accommodation that is not listed above and does not change the contract being measured by the test. A separate request form must be submitted to OSSE for review. Calculators are available within the test platform on calculator sections of math units for computer-based tests. Handheld grade appropriate calculators are another option for use on calculator sections of math units. The only times a calculator is permitted for non-calculator sections of a math assessment is when specified by a student's IEP or 504 plan and documented as an accommodation. Test administrators must confirm that calculator memories have been cleared prior to testing. Here's a glance at a prohibited calculation device. The full calculator policy can be accessed at dc.mypearsonsupport.com. Here's a list of prohibited materials for statewide content assessments, which includes DC CAPE, MSAA, and DLM. Consult the test administrator manual and accommodations and accessibility for each assessment for complete lists of allowable and prohibited materials during testing. As mentioned earlier, bilingual word-to-word dictionaries are not permitted for the access or alt access assessments. Here are prohibited actions during the access assessment. Reading aloud test items or passages on the reading test. Translating test items into a language other than English. Reading test items in a language other than English. Using a bilingual word-to-word dictionary. Responding to test questions in a language other than English. Additional guidance can be found in the Access Test Manual available on the WIDA website. It is a violation of a student's rights and test integrity if a student does not receive the appropriate testing accommodation or if a student receives an accommodation of which they are not entitled. As previously mentioned, if you discover that a test was administered with incorrect accommodations, you must stop the test, immediately notify the appropriate authorized personnel per LEA policy, and submit an incident report to OSSI using the appropriate method. Students should be familiar and comfortable with all necessary accommodations before an assessment. The current emergency accommodations request form is available on the test security page. This is for use in the event of student injury. For example, a scribe for a student with a broken wrist. Individual statewide assessments may permit unique or non-standard accommodations not included in the manuals for an assessment. Use of these accommodations must be approved by OSSI in advance. LEAs may apply for a unique accommodation by completing unique accommodation request form and submitting it via the OSSI support tool or OST. OSSI must approve the accommodations prior to use on the assessment. If schools allow students to bring their own permissible and specific unique accommodations materials, they must be given to the school test monitor or test administrator prior to testing to ensure that the tools are appropriate for testing. For example, tools do not have any writing or pre-stored information on them. Accommodation forms are available on the school test security page linked on the slide. Authorized personnel must follow test security administration guideline to securely administer assessments to students. Refrain from committing prohibited actions during testing and in instances where there are exceptional or special circumstances, namely incidents the school test coordinator must contact OSSI via the OST for next steps. Once again, in instances where there are exceptional or special circumstances during test administration, the school test coordinator must contact OSSI via the OSSI supports tool to ensure that the administration can continue. A makeup test window must be included in the test schedule uploaded with the school test security plan. This tells OSSI that your school test plan can accommodate students who were absent from testing during the initial test sessions. Makeup testing sessions are to mirror initial test sessions in adhering to test security and integrity standards. The final component of this module is to how to monitor administration and support staff. Each vendor has a support hotline that is available during testing hours, displayed here and accessible on the test coordinator's resource page linked here. A printable version is also linked on the slide. Test coordinators should contact the appropriate assessment vendors when technical support is needed during testing. The test administrator or testing technology coordinator should provide the test coordinator with the error code or codes where applicable. For support with urgent policies, questions, or urgent incidents, contact the OSSI assessment hotline at 202-304-3269. LEA and school test coordinators must ensure that a specific and detailed system is in place for authorized personnel to contact them during testing. This plan is documented where your school test security plan lives. When overseeing multiple schools, LEA school test coordinators should plan visits or virtual meetings to support school test coordinators during testing, as well as to monitor the application of test security policies and administrative procedures. OSSI will conduct in-person monitoring of the 2023-24 test administration. OSSI may also request virtual meetings with the LEA and/or school test coordinators during administration. OSSI monitors will use the statewide assessment auditor general observation checklist to guide their visit. This checklist may be helpful to test coordinators because it outlines OSSE's expectations for test administration and testing environments. During monitoring, OSSE will review school test administration and security procedure to ensure compliance with federal and local law, state regulation, policies, and guidance. And as a test security reminder, OSSE auditors will not provide feedback to technical assistance during OSSE monitor. OSSE's role is to observe and/or request feedback, and/or request information, excuse me. Please provide monitors with the documentation they request and allow them to move freely throughout the test environment once testing begins. And now we're on to Module 4, Prohibitive Actions and Incident Reported. We will start with prohibitive actions. Under the Testing Integrity Act of 2013, all authorized personnel are prohibited from test fraud, academic coaching, cheating, test tampering. Know that failure to comply with the prohibitions is a violation of test security. The following slides will go into more detail about each of these prohibitive actions. This slide will cover the prohibited actions of test fraud and coaching. The following actions are considered test fraud or academic coaching and are prohibited during the administration of all statewide assessments: reviewing, reading, or looking at test items or student responses before, during, or after administering the statewide assessments, unless specifically permitted to in the test administrator manual. Authorized personnel should not interact with the content on any secure assessment. Authorized personnel should not look at or review any test content or student responses, including on scratch paper. Assisting students in any way with answers to test questions using verbal or nonverbal cues before, during, or after administering the assessments. Examples may include answering test or content-specific questions posed by students, interacting in any way with student responses, including on scratch paper, providing verbal or nonverbal cues to indicate performance. For example, good job, check your work, or shaking your head, that are not provided in the test manual. And as a note, a test administrator may need to read test content if they're administering an accommodation that requires it. For example, human reader or human signer. In these cases, test administrators are to follow all appropriate directions in the test administrator manual to ensure they are maintaining test security. This slide will cover the prohibited actions of cheating. The following actions are considered cheating and are prohibited during administration of all statewide assessments: allowing any forms of cheating, failing to actively supervise students at all times during test sessions, allowing students to view or practice secure test items before or after the scheduled test time, allowing students to complete a single DCCAPE test unit over multiple days, allowing more than the allotted unit time to students without all approved extended time accommodations, using or allowing students use of unapproved electronic or cell phones during the administration of a statewide assessment, allowing students to use notes, references, or other aids unless the test administrator manual or an approved accommodation specifically allows it. Some examples of cheating include giving students answers, changing answers or responses of students' work at any point, administering a single DCCAPE unit over multiple days, even for students with an extended time accommodation. Once they have begun a single unit test, they may only have until the end of the school day to complete it. And allowing students to use notes, textbooks, or other aids for which they do not have the accommodation. This slide will cover the prohibitive actions of test tampering. The following actions are considered test tampering and are prohibited during the administration of all statewide assessments: altering student responses in any manner, photocopying or in any way reproducing or disclosing secure test items or other materials related to statewide assessment, altering the test procedures stated in the formal instructions accompanying the statewide assessments, having in one's personal possession secure test materials except during the scheduled test dates and times, making or having in one's possessions answer keys before the administration of the statewide assessment. Please note, the MSAA and DLM assessments allow or require certain materials to be printed and reviewed by test administrators prior to administration. Consult the manuals for each assessment for further detail. Additional examples of the prohibitive actions of test tampering include leaving secure test materials in a non-secure location or unintended area by authorized personnel, making false certification on any statewide assessment forms established and required by OSSE, being present in the test environment or handing the test materials by one's own child or family member, failing to count all test booklets and answer documents, and or failing to ensure that all pupils have properly logged off the computer system before allowing any pupil to leave the testing room, and failing to observe the test material chain of custody procedures as outlined in the school test security plan. Exceptions to prohibitive actions are covered on this slide. Failure to comply with the prohibitions will not be considered a violation if an action is necessary to provide for an accommodation explicitly identified in an IEP, 504 plan, or EL plan, or limited to supporting students to stay on task and focused. Supporting students to stay on task and focus include announcing to the entire testing group of time remaining on test, announcing to the entire testing group, reminding students to stay on task, announcing to the entire testing group, reminding students to abide by the school and/or LEA rules and/or processes, verbally but with minimal disruptions to other students, waking up a student who has fallen asleep while testing, verbally but with minimal disruption to other students, addressing an individual student's disruptive behavior, reminding individual students to stay on task and focus during the assessment, providing visual cues to an individual to remain on task. And a test security reminder, there are exceptions to prohibitive actions, test fraud, and coaching. For example, if a student needs a specific electronic device or aid that isn't a part of a standard accommodation, a unique accommodation request must be submitted to OSSE for approval. Another exception to prohibitive actions, specifically with cheating, is if a test administrator may need to read test content if they are administering an accommodation that requires it. For example, human reader or human signer. In these cases, test administrators are to follow all appropriate directions in the assessment-specific manuals to ensure they are maintaining test security and integrity. There are exceptional circumstances during test administration, which are covered on this slide. Absences and makeups. Makeup testing must be included in the schedule in the school test plan. Schools may schedule makeup testing across grades and subjects in the same room, but timing should be the same. Students are not allowed to return to a testing session which they have exited after initiating, except if approved by OSSE. For homebound students must participate in testing. The test monitor should work with the test integrity coordinator to determine how these students will be assessed and notify OSSE in the school test plan. Any non-traditional in-person testing requests, for example, testing in an alternate site or testing in specific hours, must be included in a school's test security plan. Additional exceptional circumstances during test administration include homeschool students. Homeschool students may participate in testing, but testing is voluntary. If a homeschool student wishes to participate, the test monitor works with the LEA to determine a plan for participation and notifies OSSE in the school test plan. With significant medical emergencies, students experiencing medical conditions that substantially prevent them from participating in instruction may apply for an assessment medical exemption with support from a treating physician. The student's school must submit the statewide assessment's medical exemption form to OSSE for review. Whether natural disaster, fire alarm, or school-wide emergency. If there's a school-wide emergency requiring evacuation, follow the LEA or school-wide emergency protocols. Remember, student safety first, then document and submit as an incident report to OSSE. LEAs must ensure that all eligible students enrolled at their LEA, including students in non-public settings, participate in statewide assessments. While LEAs are responsible for liaising with non-public schools to confirm students' test registrations, non-public schools are responsible for maintaining test security and reporting test security incidents that occur on their campuses to OSSE. Non-public responsibilities include compliance with the Testing Integrity Act of 2013, amendments of 2015, test security guidelines, and vendor manuals. They must also follow the creation and submission to OSSE of schools' test security plans for students enrolled at that site. And now we will cover submitting incident reports to OSSE. The following should be documented via an incident report to OSSE. If a student becomes ill or injured and cannot complete a testing session that they have already started, if a student or staff member is in possession of a cell phone or unauthorized device or uses said device in an active testing environment, if students and or staff take actions that could constitute cheating or coaching, if students and or staff are in possession of materials that could constitute as cheating, if secure testing materials are lost or left unsupervised, if students do not receive an appropriate accommodation or accommodations, if students must leave the testing environment due to an emergency or drill, or if a technical issue occurs causing the students to not complete an active testing session before the close of a school day. When incidents, deviations, or issues occur during test administration, they should be promptly communicated to OSSE. Incident reports are done via the OSSE support tool, the hotline, or the OSSE website. All breaches to test security and integrity to test administration can be submitted to OSSE via the OSSE support tool, OSSE assessment hotline, or through the OSSE website. If you do not have access to the OSSE assessment portal, incidents may be reported through the OSSE assessment hotline at 202-304-3269 or the public forum via the OSSE website. Accommodation misadministration should be submitted as incident reports. And then with the test security file, all reported test security or integrity incidents should be included in the test security file. Additional test administration concerns not resulting in a breach of the security of test materials, test content, or testing devices should be included in the test security file. There are 3 ways that an incident can be submitted to OSSE. Via the LEA assessment managers and test coordinators, you can submit an incident report through the OSSE assessment portal. Other authorized personnel and others who wish to submit an incident report can also do so using the form linked on the OSSE Test Security and Incident Reporting webpage or by calling the OSSE Assessment Hotline at 202-304-3269. Please note that the assessment hotline is only active Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, during active statewide assessment administration. When reporting test incidents to OSSE, it is important that the test incident report form is completed with detailed and specific information related to the incident. Doing so will allow OSSE to review and make a determination on how to proceed on what additional information is needed in a timely manner. The goal should be to ensure that any students impacted by the incident are able to complete testing, where applicable, before the close of a test window. Incident reports should contain, at a minimum, the information listed on this slide: the name and role of all authorized personnel involved in the incident, the name and 10-digit state student ID of any student involved, the test unit and section where applicable, any steps the school has already taken to resolve the issue. Issues that may cause a school to deviate from their approved school test security plan but do not impact school test security, integrity, or overall safety are considered minor deviations. Any changes to the approved test schedule must be reported by uploading a new test schedule into the school's test security plan in the OSSE assessment portal. The following changes must be documented as minor deviations. Changes to the approved test schedule, including substituting test administrators and/or proctors, so uploading a new test schedule into the school's test security plan. Technical issues that cause minor delays in test timing for a student or group of students, assigning a student or a different device during testing, student behavior that does not disrupt a test session or interfere with that student's or other students' ability to complete the test session. In response to reported incidents, OSSE may request that a school provide additional details or complete corrective actions during administration for 2 reasons: a plan to improve test security school policies and procedures, and/or a test security fact-finding inquiry. A plan to improve test security policies and procedures is a required document that explains your school's plans for correcting issues described in initial incident report. It must be completed and uploaded into the school test security plan within 48 hours of request. A test security fact-finding inquiry is a required document that provides OSSE with additional information about the incident reported to determine if any additional steps are necessary. And it must be completed and uploaded into the school test security plan within 72 hours of request. And as a school test security reminder, incident reports must be submitted to OSSE as soon as a potential test security violation is discovered. It is essential that OSSE has time to mitigate any issues that arise from an incident as soon as possible. And now we move on to Module 5, Administration Closeout and Reporting. We will first discuss collecting test materials. The first step we will talk about in assessment closeout will be collecting test materials. After a student has indicated that they have finished testing, or after this time has run out, if administering a time test, test administrators must follow the closeout protocol detailed in the assessment manual for each test. Scripted closeout instructions may be required. Some reminders for test administrators in the authorized personnel security training at your LEA or school. Test administrators are not permitted to tell students to check their work. Under the Testing Integrity Act, asking or telling a student to check their work at any point during the test administration or closeout is considered educator coaching and a violation of test security. If test administrators ask what phrase they can say instead of check your work, an approved phrase can be, "Are you finished and ready to close out the test?" After the student has exited a test, the test administrator must collect all testing materials and keep them in possession until the materials are returned to their secure storage locations. After collection, depending upon LEA policy, test administrators may dismiss students, or students may sit quietly or read books or complete activities not related to the assessed subject. Or other options could be a crossword puzzle after math or Sudoku puzzle after ELA. And as a test security reminder, test administrators must ensure that all secure materials are collected and in their possession prior to the student receiving any other materials or beginning any other activity. The next step we will discuss in assessment closeout will be the return or shredding of secure test materials. Test administrators must return all testing materials to the secure storage location as soon as testing is over and sign the chain of custody form. The test monitor or school test coordinator is responsible for securely storing all secure testing materials as soon as they are returned. The school test coordinator or test monitor should review test coordinator manuals to determine which materials to shred and which to return to the vendor. All secure materials that will not be returned to the testing vendor following test administration should be securely shredded with a witness present. Some examples of materials to be securely destroyed include used scratch paper and testing ticket or login information. The next step in assessment closeout is how to finalize the school test security file. The school test coordinator must ensure that all required information in the school test security file is updated after test administration. Every school is required to keep the updated file in hard copy format for 4 years. Schools may also maintain an electronic test security file in addition to the hard copy. Final versions of the school test security file must be printed and include all components, including what was previously kept as only electronic records. And as your school test security reminder, each school must keep an updated version of the test security file in hard copy format on site for 4 years. OSSE may request to see the test security file at any time within the 4-year time frame. And the next step in assessment closeout is submitting test integrity and test security affidavits to OSSE. Within 10 business days after the close of each statewide assessment, the LEA Test Integrity Coordinator must obtain signed affidavits from the school test coordinator for each approved test security plan. Within 15 days after the close of each statewide assessment window, LEAs must submit all school affidavits and one LEA level affidavit for each assessment program, Access and Alt Access, MSA and DLM, and DC CAPE to OSSE via the OSSE assessment portal. Please note, schools should refer to QuickBase for approved school test security plans to ensure that you are submitting an affidavit for all required assessments. Non-public school test coordinators must sign affidavits and submit them to OSSE via the OSSE assessment portal. This slide shows the due dates for test security affidavits by assessment program. The 10 days from assessment end date is the date by which LEAs must obtain signed affidavits from the school test coordinator for each approved school test plan. Please note, the due to OSSE via the OSSE assessment portal date is no later than 15 days after the close of the statewide window. Your submission date may be earlier depending on the final day of testing in your LEA. And as your final test security reminder, the LEA test coordinator must submit one affidavit for each assessment program. School test coordinators must submit an affidavit for each approved school test security plan. If you are both this LEA and school test coordinator, please indicate that on your affidavit upon submission. This completes Module 5 and the entire 2023-24 Test Security Training Module series. Please follow the link on this slide to access the Test Security Training Quiz and Certification Form. Remember, you must receive a score of 80% out of 100 points in order to receive credit for completing this training series. And as a reminder, OSSE will not approve school test security plans if the LEA test coordinator listed has not completed both this training series and the quiz. And as always, if you have questions about OSSE's assessment policies or specific assessment programs, please feel free to use the information on the slide to reach out to the appropriate member of the OSSE Office of Assessments. Thank you so much.